Hey there, athletes. Coach John Ferry here from Team Wilpers. Excited as always to welcome you to our Week 3 athlete briefing here for our end of summer run challenge. Per usual, we're going to start with a little Week 2 review. Week 2 started with our key run number 1, which is our tempo run. So we have segments of 10 and 8 minutes there at marathon pace, working with an endurance pace that should really be able to hold for a couple hours, at least a couple hours. So these 10 and 8 minute segments hopefully aren't pushing you too much, feeling really like cruise intervals, if you will. Key run number 2 here in week 2 was that 5 by 2 minute hill repeat session. This is obvious advancement on week 1. We're trying to continue building leg strength as well as efficiency and proficiency, working on incline there. Key run number 3, naturally our long run, wants to be easy, start to finish. Best run of the week for me, every time. Moving on to our week 3 workout. Starting the week again with a tempo run, but this time switching it up just a little bit using our mixed pace tempo run. So using shorter intervals where we're gonna increase the pace a little bit, but then kind of falling back to some of our longer sets, holding that marathon pace again. Naturally, of course, finishing on our fastest pace of the workout, back to half marathon pace, so we get a good practice of finishing those workouts nice and strong. We're gonna move on again to our key run number 2 in our hill part 3 session. So why, again, hill part 3, other than it seems fun just to torture people throughout the summer months here? Just kidding. Hill part 3, we're working now on muscular endurance of being able to sustain effort over the course of a longer period of time on that incline. So yes, the same principles apply, that we're working on strengthening your legs, we're posterior chain activation, efficiency in the stride, etc. But we're really starting to move into the kind of muscular endurance phase on a workout like this. And so when we increase the time of the set, especially when we get to something like this around like 3 minutes, it's fairly substantial amount of time on incline there. We reduce the pace. So why are we reducing the pace? And I think in general, it's very, very rare in a training situation and certainly in a race situation that you're going to try to maintain that exact same pace going from flat to incline. What you want to do is really try to match the effort as best as possible when making that transition. The only kind of tool you have in your runner tool bag at that, to work with there is pace, and to reduce that pace to keep the effort the same. So in this workout, we're going to do a very similar thing. We've been operating the half marathon pace. We're now sustaining for a longer period of time. So we're going to drop our pace target to try to match that effort a little bit better. Should make it a bit more manageable to hold that incline for the full 3 minutes there. Once again, finishing up the week with our long run, most important run of the week to pretty much all of us. So make sure that stays a fixture of your schedule. We're gonna jump straight into some questions that came up during the week. I think there's some really good things, really topical for what a lot of people are looking at right now. So first is about Team Wilpers and marathon training in particular, the Team Wilpers marathon training. The question is, my midweek runs are up to 8 miles next week. And since I do these during my lunch break, I don't have enough time to finish up the miles. Is it okay to break up the miles, maybe 4 in the morning, 4 at lunch, or do I have to wake up extra early? And there's a part B question, which is another question if I'm getting on and off shin splints, what should I do? So we're gonna start part one question here about splitting workouts, overall amount of time of a workout. And the first kind of part of this is within reason is you do not want to split workouts. The big reason you don't want to split workouts is you're giving up a ton of the benefit of each session. It takes about 20 minutes roughly to kind of start getting the cardiovascular benefit of a session. So let's say you're taking an 8-mile workout, and we'll use for even numbers, 10 minutes a mile. It's gonna be an hour and 20-minute session. You break it into 2 4s, so it's 2 40-minute sessions. You're gonna get 20 minutes of benefit in the first session, 20 minutes of benefit in the second session, grand total of 40 minutes of benefit. If you've done the full 8, you're looking at warming up for 20 minutes. You have an additional 60 minutes afterwards. So you're looking at 60 minutes of benefit versus 40 minutes of benefit in that workout. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in a second here, but in essence, you would have been better off just doing the 60-minute workout. You would have still gotten that 40 minutes of total time without running and taking the impacts, the footfalls, and the fatigue of 20 extra minutes that didn't do anything for you. So the short answer is that splitting the workouts is not ideal. You're really giving up a lot. And so you want to make some adjustments. And let's talk about some of those adjustments. And I think another question kind of came up, and I'm going to tie in here about using time-based workouts versus distance-based workouts. And it's a really great thing to talk about right about now, especially as a lot of marathoners are going into their longest workouts here. So we obviously use in our challenge infrastructure a time-based workout, which is we don't talk about miles, we don't talk about quarter-mile repeats, we talk about minutes, seconds, etc. of what we're doing. So when you're using distance-based training plans, and we're writing some of these first stock plans to be used in kind of the All Access program, we're really kind of have to shoot for the middle in terms of where paces might lie. So when I think about an easy pace workout, and when we're back, when I was writing some of these workouts a long time ago, I usually think somewhere in the ballpark between like 7 minutes a mile and 10 minutes a mile, find a sweet spot. But if you're on the front end, all of a sudden some of these workouts can be a little short. And if you're on the back end, some of these can start to feel certainly a bit long. But that's sort of the tricky thing with the distance-based plan. And so here, the issue falls is this: not only takes a long time, but if we have an 8-mile workout and one runner's workout is 60 minutes and one runner's workout is 90 minutes, that 8-mile workout was not the same for those two runners. Significantly easier for the faster athlete, significantly harder, more strain, more stress, more fatigue coming if it takes you 30 additional minutes to cover the distance. In essence, both runners, let me rephrase, as opposed to a time-based workout where runner A ran 60 minutes easy, runner B ran 60 minutes easy, the faster runner is going to cover more distance, but both runners have run for 60 minutes easy, and actually the training stress score or that stress of the workout is going to be the same despite the fact that the distance is different. So it's one of the main reasons that we use time-based workouts actually in the challenge infrastructure, because it really applies to a larger group of people. A 10-minute marathon pace interval is going to be as hard for you, as for me, as for someone operating at an Olympic level. They're going to go much, much further than all of us. It's still going to be the same level of difficulty for them, as opposed to a 1-mile repeat, where 1 mile for them, they're going to finish much sooner. We're going to still be working for a longer period of time. So for that reason, I really like a lot of time-based workouts, especially for runners that are a little, let's say, at 10 minutes a mile or more. Some general thoughts about training and our training plans. And you'll see certainly through the challenge infrastructure that I've followed these guidelines, we almost never have a workout midweek longer than 60 minutes. Very, very rarely. I don't think if we ever touched in the challenge infrastructure on the 75 minutes, but certainly sometimes 75-minute creeps in for certain athletes. An incredibly rare athlete that I work with, it might have some 90-minute midweek workouts, but those are going to be for advanced marathoners and ultra marathoners pretty much exclusively. So in all the one-on-one clients I've worked with, 95% of workouts are 60 minutes and less. There's a couple reasons of that. One, that's a hard, long workout. Two, people don't have that much time. I can't give a 90-minute workout to everybody in the middle of a weekday all the time. There are just things going on. They don't become very productive sessions. So I bring this up because if you are one of many people finding that these workouts are getting longer and longer and longer, and the time it takes to do them is becoming non-sustainable, it not only is probably too long a workout to be doing, is that it probably should be, it's going to take too much out of you. It should be a workout the workout needs to be modified to better suit your training as well as your kind of life requirements. So There are a few different ways you could go about looking into that. You could certainly use a time-based training like our challenge infrastructure, like some of the time-based half marathon and marathon programs that went out. It was absolutely the reason that we created them this year for the first time ever, was to cater to people with this exact same issue, where some of the distance-based workouts are starting to take too long. You could absolutely use a Team Wilpers coaching consultation to talk to a coach to help figure out how to modify workouts to best fit into your routine and be very effective. That's certainly an available option. But you definitely want to find something that's more sustainable than just splitting the workouts in half and trying to do a little bit in the morning, a little bit in midday. It's not going to be as productive. It's going to eventually be very tiresome to just be working out constantly. And like I said, you're not getting the return on investment on all that time spent, unfortunately. Part 2, shin splints. So shin splints, most likely a combination of two things: lack of ankle mobility for sure, and lack of ankle stability for sure. And so when those two things combine, you have yourself a problem there. So step 1, work on the ankle mobility. So especially the dorsiflexion part, kind of toe coming towards the shin, but also your plantar flexion. The mobility of that ankle is a huge deal when it comes to shin splints. Step 2 is you need to get yourself more stable. And one of the biggest ways we do that in running is with single leg strength training exercises. When you think about the stability of the footfall and balancing on one foot on every single running motion, then multiplying that by thousands of footfalls over the course of even a short run, that instability starts to really add up and it can become problematic. It's really interesting the amount of runners that I see that cannot stand on one leg, despite the fact that running is literally only on one leg at a time. So if you are an athlete that can't stand on one leg, we found something immediately to work on that's going to really improve your run and your health of running. But that single leg strength training in particular is an incredible way to work on that stability of the ankle. The less stable the ankle, we're certainly opening the door for injury to creep in, especially in those repetitive stress issues. I think some less useful but relevant things to think about are making sure that your shoes are traded out regularly. Having fresher cushion is going to help reduce that impact underfoot. It's not going to help your mobility, and it's certainly not going to help your stability. As a matter of fact, the softer the cushion, the less stable it is. We'll leave that alone. But you can certainly also, this is a very helpful one actually, is foam rolling and stretching your calves. Tight calves they lock up in the lower leg. You're getting less range of motion in general. It's going to contribute to that shin splint issue. So foam rolling the calves, stretching the calves, making sure that those muscles are supple and moving really well, it's going to absolutely help on the shin splint. But the big things, once again, working on the flexibility and the mobility more so, probably mobility of the ankle, of the joint, and the stability. Got to be really stable on that single leg footfall and the single leg landing. Multiply that by thousands and you can really make a big difference quickly. Next question. What is the rationale behind the naming of the paces? For example, my half marathon pace is 8:44, yet I would struggle to run a 5K at that speed. So it's a good question. All of the paces are based on a percentage of threshold. And our calculator for our challenge and programs provide, I would say, training paces, which is a pace associated with a percentage of threshold energy zone that we want to target in a specific workout. And what I would say it is not is necessarily a race pace predictor. And why, might you ask, would I say that? Let's think about how we get to that threshold number, which is we use the 20-minute distance test. And I'm sure many people have heard me talk before about some of the highs and lows of the 20-minute distance test in solving for threshold. But one of the downsides of a 20-minute test, or any test, is that the test is going to establish pace guidelines that are most accurate to a race distance similar to the test. So for example, A 20-minute test is going to give you a really good expectation of 5K race pace. Why? Because it maybe a little bit more than 20, it might be 30 minutes, but you're still kind of there, 20 to 30 minutes of rough time where you're looking at maybe the 5K. So running a really hard 20 minutes is going to give you a pretty good indicator of your 5K race pace. Running a 20-minute test is going to give you a fairly poor indication of what your marathon pace is. We're talking about needing the endurance to cover 20 minutes of testing hard versus multiple hours of long running. Very different energy zone. A 20-minute test requires VO2 max as well as endurance. The marathon requires almost no VO2 max energy zone work. It's almost exclusively an endurance activity with maybe a little bit of zone 3 in the end as things drift up. So having a strong VO2 max helps, but that is not the style of racing that a marathon is. So when it comes to race prediction, it is much better to find some sort of either test or I love my athletes to do test races. So for a marathoner, for example, we've been talking a lot about the marathon today. I have those athletes' pace tests are going to be kind of B-race half marathons or other half marathons that they go and really race maybe 2 to 3 months ahead of their main event. That is a great pace test all of a sudden, a 13 and a 10th mile pace test where we really get a sense of where does the pace meet endurance and how does that translate to a longer distance. And then we get to look at their training on how things went for the marathon, certainly using maybe some test miles in there to see what we feel is a pace that they can hold for even double that period of time. And that's how we start getting it. Using a 20-minute test to try to find the pace for even a half marathon or a marathon is tough. In addition, having a really strong VO2 max, you can kind of over-test for your endurance distance. So if you're a really good short distance athlete, you perform incredibly well at the 20-minute test, that's going to skew those numbers for the half marathon and marathon to a place that you are not necessarily trained for or ready to take on yet. Doesn't mean that you couldn't get there in the future, but it means that you don't have the training to be there right now. I think a good way to, maybe an analogy of sorts to think about is we describe threshold a lot as the pace that you could hold for 1 hour at maximum. However, if running for 1 hour at maximum is hard as is, then you certainly aren't running at maximum capacity for 1 hour. You need to have built that endurance over a long period of time in combination with the threshold work and the zone 3 work to support that 1 hour max test. So hopefully that helps a little bit, or these paces that we're providing really are targeting energy zones. We very easily could retitle them, just number them 1 through 7 or 1 through 6, the way things are listed in the way that we go after it. But we try to equate them with something that's just a little bit more, something that people can associate with some real world race distances there. Otherwise, friends, that will be all here for week 3. Thanks so much for joining. Have an amazing week. I can't wait to see you back next week.